A Deathworld Cadet walked solo and every apex predator made way the first time Cadet Elena Martinez stepped onto the transport deck of the Galactic Naval Academy ship Convergence. Every conversation stopped. Not because she was remarkable to look at, though her Earth-honed physique spoke of gravity that would crush most species, but because of what walked behind her. Nothing walked behind her. That was the problem, Commander Zethkar. A 7-foot Krillian with mandibles that could snap steel watched the human female move through the bay with the easy confidence of someone who had never needed to look over her shoulder. His secondary arms twitched nervously as he checked his scanner readings for the third time. Impossible, he muttered in trade standard, his voice creating the clicking harmonics that marked his species. No Deathworlder travels alone. His aide, a nervous Velthari named Sisth, bobbed agreement with her entire serpentine body. Perhaps her protection detail is cloaked, Commander. Earth technology has always been primitive, Zethkar finished. Their stealth technology couldn't hide a space rat from my sensors. He watched Elena pause at the registration terminal, noting how other cadets unconsciously gave her a wide berth. Yet she boards with no escort, no protection, no backup. Elena finished her registration and turned toward the dormitory assignments. Her duffel bag slung over one shoulder with the kind of casual strength that made physics-minded aliens nervous. Earth's 1.2 gravity wasn't supposed to produce beings this functionally powerful, yet here she was, making the artificial 0.8 gravity of the ship feel like a gentle breeze. The crowd parted for her without realizing it. Cadet Tornex, a Regalian whose species had conquered 3-star systems before joining the Galactic Union, found himself stepping aside as the human approached. It wasn't conscious his hindbrains, evolved on a world where hesitation meant death, simply recognized something his conscious mind couldn't process. This was Apex. "Excuse me," Elena said politely, her voice carrying that peculiar human accent that somehow managed to sound both melodic and threatening. "Could you point me toward dormitory section 7? Tornix's throat sacs inflated slightly, a stress response his species couldn't control. "Down the main corridor, 3rd junction left." The words came out in a rush. "Thanks." Elena smiled, showing those predator teeth that humans seem so casual about displaying, and continued on her way. 3 minutes later, Tornix realized his hands were shaking. Elena found her assigned quarters easily enough. The room was designed for cross-species compatibility with adjustable atmosphere, gravity, and lighting controls. Her bunkmate hadn't arrived yet, which suited her fine. She'd learned early that most aliens needed time to adjust to sharing space with a human. She unpacked efficiently, muscle memory from years of military school back home taking over. Photos went on the small shelf beside her bed, her graduation from Earth's Luna Military Academy, her family back in New Angeles, and one particular image that always made her smile herself at age 12. Arm around the neck of a Kodiak bear in Alaska, the bear had wandered into their camping area. While her family panicked and reached for repellent sprays, Elena had simply stood up, made eye contact, and waited. The bear, a massive male that could have killed her with a casual swipe, had approached cautiously, sniffed her hand, and then settled down beside her like an enormous dog. The photo had gone viral on Earth's networks. Scientists still debated what it meant. Elena knew what it meant. It meant she was home. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. She opened it to find a floating maintenance drone, its sensors blinking in what she'd learned was confusion. "Cadet Martinez?" The drone's voice was translated through the ship's AI. "I'm here to install your emergency beacon." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Emergency beacon?" "Standard protocol for all Deathworld species," the drone explained, extending mechanical arms toward her. "To be worn at all times. Allows for immediate location and extraction in case of..." The drone paused. "Incident. What kind of incident?" "The kind where your species might accidentally kill someone," came a new voice from the corridor. Elena turned to see a tall, elegant Altarian female approaching. Unlike most aliens, this one didn't slow down or change course as she got closer. Her silver skin had the flowing patterns that marked her as nobility, and her large, dark eyes held intelligence and curiosity rather than fear. "I'm Lysath Valkoros," the Altarian said, offering the complex bow that served as both greeting and respect among her people. "Your roommate, apparently. Elena Martinez." Elena returned the bow with surprising grace for a human. "And I don't accidentally kill people." "Not yet," Lysath replied with what might have been humor. "But then, you've never been in a situation where your life was threatened by someone weaker than yourself." The maintenance drone continued blinking in confusion. "About the beacon ... Not necessary," Elena said firmly. "I don't need tracking." "Cadet, I'm afraid regulations require—" "Show me the regulation," Elena interrupted. "Specific code and subsection." The drone's processors worked for several seconds. When it spoke again, its voice had changed slightly. "Galactic Naval Code, Section 7.3.2, Subsection 14. All cadets from worlds classified as Class X or above shall wear standard-issue tracking devices for the safety of themselves and others." "And what's Earth classified as?" Elena asked. Another pause. Class 12. Elena smiled. "Well then?" Lesat made a sound that might have been laughter. "You're going to be interesting." The drone retreated, still blinking in confusion. Elena stepped aside to let Lesat enter their shared quarters. "You know," Lesat said conversationally as she began unpacking her belongings, "my people have a saying, when the apex walks alone, it's because nothing dares follow. I always thought it was just poetry." "Maybe it is," Elena replied, settling onto her bunk. "Or maybe," Lysath continued, "it's because you've never needed anything to follow you." That evening, the Academy held its traditional welcome ceremony in the main assembly hall. Nearly 3,000 cadets from across the galaxy filled the massive space, representing 247 different species and civilizations. Elena entered alone. The effect was immediate and undeniable. Conversations didn't exactly stop, but they quieted. Movement didn't cease, but it became more careful, more deliberate. 3,000 young beings, each the best their world had to offer. Each trained in combat and survival, each confident in their own abilities. Felt something primal activate in their minds. Predator, apex predator. Deathworld apex predator walking solo. Elena seemed oblivious to the effect. She found an empty section of seating and settled in with the casual confidence of someone who had never doubted her place in any room. Around her, a natural buffer zone formed as other cadets unconsciously chose seats slightly farther away, all except one. Lysath slid into the seat beside her, earning startled looks from nearby aliens. "Comfortable?" the Altarian asked. "Always," Elena replied. "Even when every other being in the room is wondering what's wrong with you?" Elena glanced around, seeming to notice the attention for the first time. "Is that what they're doing?" "Among other things. There are 17 different species here tonight whose homeworlds have predators capable of killing them. 6 species that are themselves apex predators on their own worlds. And all of them are reacting to you like—" Lesat paused. "Like prey reacts to something higher on the food chain." "That's ridiculous," Elena said. "I'm not hunting anybody." "No," Lesat agreed. "You're not. That's what makes it so unsettling. A predator that's hunting can be understood, planned for, defended against. A predator that's just ... existing. That's different." The ceremony began with Admiral Corton, a massive Thoraxian whose species had only joined the Galactic Union after being conquered in a war that lasted 3 centuries. His voice carried the authority of someone who had personally led fleets into battle. "Cadets," he began, his words translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "You represent the finest your worlds have to offer. You are here because you have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and the ability to work with others despite differences in biology, culture, and evolution." The Admiral's gaze swept across the assembly, lingering for a moment on Elena's section. You will face challenges here that will test not only your skills, but your understanding of what it means to be truly civilized. You will learn that strength is not just physical power, but the wisdom to know when to use it and when to hold back. Several cadets glanced toward Elena, who seemed to be listening with genuine interest. You will discover that the greatest warriors are often those who choose not to fight, the Admiral continued, and that sometimes the most dangerous beings are those who appear to pose no threat at all. After the ceremony, cadets mingled in the reception area, forming the natural clusters that always developed among young beings thrust into new social situations. Species grouped with species, world cultures with world cultures, shared experiences creating bonds across the vast differences in biology and background. Elena moved through these groups with an easy confidence that was both admirable and deeply unsettling. She spoke trade standard with barely an accent, asked intelligent questions about other worlds and cultures, and displayed the kind of genuine curiosity that marked the best naval officers. She also left a Waco. A Deathworld cadet walked solo and every apex predator made way. The combat training facility aboard the Convergence was designed to accommodate the wildly different physiologies and fighting styles of the galaxy's numerous species. Variable gravity zones, atmospheric controls, terrain simulators, and safety fields capable of stopping everything from Rigelian plasma bursts to Thoraxian bone spears. What it wasn't designed for was Elena Martinez. Master Chief Instructor Victor, a grizzled Altarian veteran whose silver skin bore the flowing scars of 3 major wars, stood before the assembled first-year cadets with the easy confidence of someone who had seen everything the galaxy could throw at him. He was about to be proven wrong. Combat training, he announced in the gravelly voice that had intimidated cadets for 2 decades, is not about winning fights. It's about understanding violence. Understanding when to use it, when to avoid it, and most importantly, understanding your own capabilities and limitations. The chief's large, dark eyes swept across the mixed group of young aliens, each representing their species' finest. Towering Krillians with their natural weapons, swift Velthari with their serpentine flexibility, analytical Betelgeuzians with their tactical computers, noble Altarians with their centuries of martial tradition, and one human female sitting quietly in the back, her earth-brown eyes showing polite attention and no nervousness whatsoever. Today we begin with assessment, Victor continued. You will each demonstrate your natural fighting capabilities in a controlled environment. Protective fields will prevent serious injury, but you will feel the impact of strikes. This gives us baseline measurements for designing your individual training programs. A nervous Velthari named Sisht H raised her hand. Master Chief? What about safety protocols for Deathworld species? Victor's expression didn't change, but his gaze flicked briefly toward Elena. The safety fields are rated for Class 15 combat. They can handle anything short of ship-grade weaponry. But Earth is classified as Class 12, Victor interrupted. I'm aware. He paused, his warrior's instincts picking up something in the air that his conscious mind couldn't identify. The safety protocols are more than adequate. Elena raised her hand. Master Chief? What if the safety field malfunctions? It won't, but hypothetically? Victor studied the human female with the attention of someone who had survived 3 wars by paying attention to details others missed. She wasn't asking out of fear. Her posture and tone indicated genuine curiosity. But there was something underneath the question, something that made his veteran instincts twitch. Hypothetically, he said carefully, we stop the exercise immediately. Good to know, Elena said, settling back in her seat. Just wanted to make sure. The assessment began with the larger species. Toronex the Rigelian demonstrated the brutal efficiency his people were known for, powerful strikes delivered with mechanical precision. Thokmor from Betelgeuse displayed the analytical fighting style that made his species excellent fleet tacticians. The Altarians moved with flowing grace that turned combat into deadly art. Each demonstration was impressive in its own way. showcasing millions of years of evolutionary pressure refined into martial skill. Then Elena stood up. "Cadet Martinez," Victor called. "You're up?" Elena walked to the center of the training mat with that same easy confidence she'd displayed since boarding the ship. Around the edges of the space, her fellow cadets unconsciously pressed closer to the protective barriers, though none of them could have explained why. "What would you like me to demonstrate?" Elena asked. "Whatever combat style your species considers standard," Victor replied, activating his scanner to record the session. "Show me what humans call fighting." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Any particular intensity level?" The question caught Victor off guard. Most cadets demonstrated at their maximum capability, eager to impress. "Whatever you consider appropriate for a training environment." "Training environment?" Elena repeated, as if tasting the words. "Okay," she moved. The word "moved" was inadequate for what happened next. Elena didn't step or stride or advance. She exploded from stillness into motion with a speed that made the scanning equipment stutter. Her body became a weapon system, every movement flowing seamlessly into the next with the kind of deadly efficiency that could only come from a lifetime of practice, but it was her restraint that truly terrified the observers. Each strike was pulled at the last instant. Each movement that should have been followed by bone-breaking force instead demonstrated perfect control. Elena fought against an invisible opponent with techniques designed to kill, maim, and disable, while somehow keeping every motion within the bounds of what would be safe in a training environment. She was holding back dramatically. The demonstration lasted 30 seconds. When Elena stopped, she wasn't even breathing hard. Victor stared at his scanner readings. "Impossible. Problem, Master Chief?" Elena asked politely. "According to these readings, you just delivered enough kinetic energy to penetrate Class X armor. But you were shadowboxing." Elena nodded. "I was being careful." "Training environment, like you said?" Around the edges of the mat, alien cadets stared in stunned silence. Several Velthari had unconsciously coiled their bodies into defensive positions. The Regelians' threat assessment organs were inflating. Even the normally stoic Altarians showed signs of stress. "Cadet Martinez," Victor said slowly, "what happens when you're not being careful?" Elena's smile was pleasant and entirely unhelpful. "I've never actually found out, Master Chief. Things usually stop moving before I reach that point." For the first time in his 20-year career, Master Chief Instructor Victor felt a chill of actual fear run down his spine. Not fear of injury or death. He was a veteran. He'd made peace with those possibilities long ago. This was deeper, more primal. This was the fear his ancestors had felt when something larger and deadlier had entered their territory. "I see," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "And your species considers this standard combat ability?" "For naval candidates, yes, sir. Earth takes military service seriously." "How seriously?" Elena's expression grew thoughtful. "Well, our basic training involves live-fire exercises with actual ammunition, survival training in environments that regularly kill people, and hand-to-hand combat against instructors who don't pull their punches. The academy was—" She paused. "More intense." The silence that followed was broken by a nervous Betelgeusian named Nixtar. "More intense how?" "Fully adaptive scenarios," Elena replied casually. "Combat simulations against hostile wildlife, environmental hazards, and armed opponents. If you couldn't handle what might eat you, fight you, or try to kill you on Earth, you weren't considered ready for what might happen in space." Master Chief Victor found himself asking a question he'd never thought he'd need to ask. "Cadet Martinez, in your opinion, what's the most dangerous thing aboard this ship?" Elena considered this seriously. "Honestly? Probably the reactor core. Though I'd need to see the technical specifications to be sure. The gravitational shielding might— what's the most dangerous thing that could threaten other cadets?" Elena's confusion seemed genuine. "In what context? Are we talking about a malfunction, hostile action, or just general ship operations? Because the answers would be very different." Victor realized she wasn't being evasive. She literally didn't understand that he might be asking about her. Never mind, he said finally. Let's move on to paired exercises. The collective intake of breath from the assembled cadets was audible. Master Chief, Lysa spoke up, her normally melodious voice tight with concern. Perhaps we should start with individual assessments for now. The training schedule calls for paired exercises, Victor replied, though his own instincts were screaming warnings. Cadet Martinez, you'll be partnered with... He scanned the group, looking for someone large enough and skilled enough to provide a reasonable match. His gaze fell on Toronex, the massive Rigelian whose species had conquered 3 star systems. 8 feet tall, naturally armored skin, reflexes honed by evolution on a world where hesitation meant death. Cadet Toronex, Victor called. You're up? Toronex approached the mat with the steady confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. His species' natural weapons were formidable. His training extensive, his combat record flawless. He was also... Elena realized with a sinking feeling, about to become a problem. Master Chief, she said quietly, are you sure about this pairing? Is there a problem, Cadet? Elena looked at Toronex, then back at Victor. I'd prefer to spar with someone who's used to fighting things stronger than themselves. The suggestion hung in the air like an insult. Toronex's threat assessment organs inflated slightly, the Rigelian equivalent of raised hackles. You think you're stronger than me? Toronex asked, his voice carrying the harmonic overtones that indicated aggressive challenge among his people. I think I'm stronger than anything you've ever fought, Elena replied matter-of-factly. And I don't want to hurt you by accident. The effect of her words on the assembled cadets was immediate and dramatic. This wasn't boasting or intimidation, it was delivered with the calm certainty of someone stating an obvious fact, Toronex's combat instincts. Refined over millions of years of evolution, were screaming contradictory messages. The logical part of his mind saw a small female from a newly contacted. A Deathworld Cadet walked solo and every apex predator made way. The attack came 3 weeks into their journey, when the convergence was passing through the neutral zone between the Rigel and Vega systems. It began with proximity alarms that sent crew members scrambling to their stations and had cadets rushing to emergency positions they'd only practiced in drills. Elena Martinez was in the navigation lab when the first explosions rocked the ship. All cadets to emergency stations, the ship's AI announced, its normally calm voice carrying an edge of urgency. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Around Elena, alien cadets moved with the controlled panic of young beings facing their first real crisis. Some headed for the escape pod stations they'd been assigned. Others rushed toward the main corridors, seeking safety in numbers. Elena headed for the bridge. She moved through corridors that were rapidly filling with emergency response teams. Her Earth-honed reflexes automatically mapping routes and calculating response times. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated as power was rerouted to defensive systems. But Elena adapted to each change without conscious thought. Behind her, unnoticed, an emergency beacon began broadcasting. The one the maintenance drone had tried to install weeks earlier, but which had been quietly attached to her equipment by security personnel who understood what they were dealing with. The beacon wasn't for Elena's safety. It was to warn any rescue forces what they'd be dealing with if Elena Martinez decided someone had threatened her new family. On the bridge, controlled chaos reigned. Admiral Corton stood at the center of the command deck, his massive frame steady despite the ship's violent movements as defensive fire exploded around them. Report, he commanded, his voice cutting through the noise. 3 vessels. Unknown configuration, came the reply from the sensor station. They appeared from nowhere, sir. Stealth technology beyond our detection capabilities. Fleet composition? 1 heavy cruiser, 2 fast attack craft. They're demanding we prepare to be boarded. Admiral Corton's expression grew grim. Pirates were an unfortunate reality in the space lanes, but attacking a galactic naval vessel was unprecedented. Either these raiders were desperate beyond reason, or they knew something about the convergence that made it worth the risk. Sir, the communications officer called out. They're specifically demanding we turn over the human cargo. They know we have a Deathworld Cadet aboard. The bridge fell silent except for the sounds of battle systems charging and defensive fire being exchanged. Every officer present understood the implications. This wasn't random piracy. This was a targeted strike. The turbolift doors opened and Elena stepped onto the bridge, moving with the easy confidence that marked everything she did. Her presence had an immediate effect. Bridge crew members unconsciously straightened, threat assessments activated, and the general stress level somehow both increased and decreased simultaneously. "Admiral," Elena said politely, "I thought you might want to know that someone's trying to kidnap me." Admiral Corton studied the small human female who had just walked uninvited onto his bridge during a combat situation. She showed no fear, no panic, no uncertainty. If anything, she seemed mildly curious about the proceedings. "Cadet Martinez, you should be at your emergency station." "My emergency station is wherever I can be most useful," Elena replied. "And right now, that's probably here." Another explosion rocked the ship, closer this time. The main screen showed the attacking vessels closing distance, their weapons systematic and precise. "They're not trying to destroy us," Elena observed, studying the tactical display. "They're trying to disable us? That means they want something intact." "Yes," the Admiral agreed grimly. Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe we should give them what they want." The suggestion sent a ripple of shock through the bridge crew. Commander Zethkar stepped forward, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Absolutely not. Galactic naval regulations strictly forbid surrendering personnel to hostile forces." "I'm not suggesting surrender," Elena said, her voice taking on a tone that made several crew members unconsciously step back. "I'm suggesting we let them come aboard." Admiral Corton found himself looking at Elena Martinez with new eyes. He'd read the classified files that Master Chief Victor couldn't access. He knew what Earth's military considered acceptable training methods. He understood what kind of world produced beings like this one. More importantly, he recognized the expression she was wearing. He'd seen it on his own face, decades ago, when young enemies had made the mistake of threatening something he cared about. "Explain," he commanded. "They want me alive, or they wouldn't be bothering with disable tactics," Elena said. "Moving to the tactical station with the unconscious authority of someone accustomed to command. That means they'll send boarding parties to secure me specifically. Small teams, probably elite, definitely confident in their abilities. And?" Elena's smile was pleasant and absolutely terrifying. "Admiral, I've been surrounded by things trying to kill me my entire life. The difference is, this time I don't have to hold back." The bridge fell silent except for the sounds of distant weapons fire. Every alien present was suddenly, viscerally aware that they were sharing space with something their evolutionary history had taught them to fear, something that had just declared its intention to stop hiding what it was. "Cadet Martinez," Admiral Corton said carefully, "are you requesting permission to engage hostile boarders?" "I'm requesting permission to defend this ship and everyone on it," Elena replied. "How I do that is a matter of tactics." The Admiral considered his options. Standard protocol called for defensive positions, coordinated resistance, and minimal casualties. But standard protocol was written for conventional threats, not for situations where one of his cadets was capable of single-handedly turning the tide of battle. "Permission granted," he said finally. "But cadets, sir?" "Try to leave some of them alive for questioning." Elena's grin showed those predator teeth. "I'll do my best, sir." 20 minutes later, the first boarding pod breached the Convergence's hull in Section 7, exactly where Elena had predicted it would. The location was tactically sound close to the main corridors with multiple escape routes, and far enough from the bridge to avoid immediate response. The raiders who emerged were clearly professionals. Matching armor, coordinated movements, weapons that spoke of military training and serious funding. Each one moved with the confidence of beings who had done this before and survived. They began advancing toward the dormitory sections, following intelligence that told them exactly where to find their target. Elena was waiting for them, in corridor junction C7. Sitting cross-legged in the middle of the passageway, Reading a technical manual, the squad leader, a heavily armed Volthari mercenary whose species was known for their tactical brilliance, stopped his team with a raised hand. His sensors showed one small humanoid directly ahead, displaying no weapons and no threatening behavior. It felt like a trap. Target acquired, he reported through his comm system. Human female, alone, unarmed. Secure her, came the reply. Minimal force unless she resists. The squad leader approached carefully, weapon lowered but ready. Human, you will come with us. Do not resist and you will not be harmed. Elena looked up from her manual with polite interest. Sorry, but I'm not really available for kidnapping today. Maybe try again next week. The mercenary's confusion was understandable. Hostages weren't supposed to be sarcastic. This is not a request. You will comply. Elena closed her manual and stood up, her movements fluid and unhurried. I've been holding back since I got here. Being careful, trying not to scare anyone, making sure I didn't accidentally hurt somebody weaker than me. She took a step forward and suddenly the corridor felt smaller. But you're not weak, are you? Elena continued conversationally. You're professionals. Armed, armored, trained killers who thought it would be a good idea to threaten my friends. The squad leader's threat assessment systems were screaming warnings his conscious mind couldn't process. According to every scan, Elena Martinez was a small, unarmed female with no visible weapons or defensive equipment. According to millions of years of evolutionary instinct, she was the most dangerous thing he'd ever encountered. Last warning, he said, raising his weapon. Comply or we will use force. Elena smiled, and her smile was terrible. Please do. What happened next was less a fight than a lesson in applied physics. Elena moved. The word was still inadequate, even now when she wasn't holding back. She didn't step or stride or advance. She became a force of nature that happened to be shaped like a young human woman. The first mercenary's weapon was in her hands. Before he could fire it, his armor was crumpling under her grip before he could react, and his unconscious body was hitting the deck before his brain could process what had happened. The second and third mercenaries managed to fire exactly one shot each. Elena was no longer where their weapons were pointing. The fourth mercenary, a Krillian whose people were renowned for their combat reflexes, actually managed to track her movement for almost half a second before Elena's palm strike sent him through the corridor wall. The squad leader, trained by the best military instructors in 3 systems, managed to activate his emergency beacon before Elena's hand closed around his throat. Now, Elena said pleasantly,